bring my, show my queen. She's in the house. Now you come on. In London.
Oh, yeah.
And so I want to document that. We got the queen over there and also. And so, you know. But real magical power, this is very magical.
Like all of us.
So, you know, a lot of power, a lot of energy and stuff, you know. And so, you know, very magical sister and also. They say the best for last, you know, because we hooked up, what, 4 years ago now, back in 2004. So, you know, real powerful. Of Washington, D.C. So in so many words, they used to do a lot of rituals in Washington, D.C. to the goddess Virgo and Scorpio and the goddess Aset. And as a result, she was born and incarnated in D.C. So she's got a lot of power based on the ritualistic things that they were doing in D.C. And so she's born, you know, born and bred in that town. So real powerful energy and all. And so what it was is that I had the queen, Ginger, which was 20 years younger than me, and we woke up one day and she said, it's time for me to go. And I'm like, yeah, it's time to go. And it wasn't any kind of breakup or nothing. It's just every now and then the cycle passed. And you be like trying to figure out why my relationship is not happening. There's seasons. You see, you don't understand. Everybody wasn't meant to be together till death do you part. It's like this, you come to do a work in a certain season. And so then I went through a string of women, you know, about 12 of them. You know, of course, about 3-4 years, and then she was the 13th one, and 13 is very, very powerful. You see what I'm saying? And 13th one, so she took me from that hiatus and that you know, that whole thing. But that was a cycle also too. You know, but I'm really glad to be here in London. You know, and I think what it was. I know now that things happen spiritually. So when I was saying I was too lazy to get my passport, it wasn't that. It was the spirit was like saying, it's not time for you yet. You see, it's like let the others come through, and then and so everything works on a sequence like that. Because when I applied for my passport, I got it in 8 days, and that's unheard of because now they're locking down the United States, whereas you got to have a passport to go to Canada and Mexico. You see what I'm saying? You know. And so I got it in 8 days. So I knew, I said, okay, now is the time that I'm supposed to come. You see what I'm saying? That's interesting here because I went to Canada back in the fall of 2006, right after my mother made the transition. As a matter of fact, I was supposed to go to Canada. My mother made the transition on July the 20th, which was the day that Noble Drew Ali made the transition, the day that Bruce Lee made the transition. The date, you know, so it was real. That's a real date I gotta try to look into. And she just sat in the chair, and this her kundalini rose up, and she just spontaneously combusted. You see, so and so it was just her time to go to that goddess level. And she said, "This is," she had to go through something on how this thing is going to go down. We'll go into that science over the course of days of the rising of the gods and goddesses. So then I went to Canada. And all of a sudden what happened was we realized there's 3 places on the planet where the knowledge goes down. One is the United States, one is Canada, because they got to hold intelligence to the brothers and sisters up there in Canada, and one is England or London. Why? It has something to do with the language barrier. It has something to do with English itself. So in so many words, you see, there's a language barrier. We can't go to France. There's got a lot of Africans in France, but we don't speak French. You see what I'm saying? We can't go to the continent a lot of times, because most of them, what you got was Zimbabwe, maybe Nigeria, a few places. But my point here is it was set up this way based on the technology, that it would be these 3 centers: America, Canada, and the United Kingdom. And that's everything, and as a result, that's the way the actual consciousness is going off. You see what I'm saying? So we have the islands and stuff, you know, the Caribbean, but then again, the Caribbean link to this thing is here in the UK. This is the deal. See, this is the key on how this stuff manifests. We have a big Afrocentric and metaphysical aspect in the United States, but because the Caribbean communities, everything is separated based on communities in the United States. We have the Caribbean input, but it's not as big in the United States as far as getting this particular information. But the missing link is here. This is the key. This is the key on that. You see what I'm saying? The Caribbean, African connection. It had to be in another country, you see what I'm saying? And it is very key at this particular time that everything is going down this way. Now, the reason why I say, well, some people will say, well, you know, why do you say London and why do you say the United States? And I'm going to tell you something. About a year ago now, what's happening? I'm going to go into a whole lot of things. We're going to go into a question and answer in a few minutes because I want to see what's on your mind. So what we're going to do it a little bit different. We're going to talk a little bit, then we're going to go into a question and answer up front so we can get the system going, because what we're dealing with here, we are coming to the gods and goddesses. And what I mean by that is this, to give you an example of what's really going on with us. About 4 years ago, all of a sudden, Howard University in Washington, D.C., a couple of other universities, Morehouse College in Atlanta, some couple of universities in Alabama, they started getting these grants to study the DNA of 15,000 African Americans. And it resulted in a PBS special, African American Lives with Henry Louis Gates. Now, so the other part here is based on the diaspora, was the Caribbean. So where did they go to study the DNA of the Caribbean? They came here to London. And they got a whole movie on it where they tell you to trace your roots back to Africa. All this stuff recently, it's been real big about tracing your DNA back to Africa. You got to understand, they don't give a damn about you tracing your DNA back to Africa than anything. But why all of a sudden this is of importance? So they came here to trace your DNA back to Africa. What this means is that they're trying to track the rise of the gods. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. We can talk about the practitioners, we can talk about all the groups and all of this, but the most important thing right now is this. They're trying to track the rise of the gods. Now, I noticed we got a brother that came up. He said it's from Pakistan, right? Yes. Pakistan. And it's interesting how the spirit works. Because in 1999, in Pakistan, they had these celebrations. And they said, well, why are you all celebrating in Pakistan? They said, we're celebrating the rise of the gods, of some hidden gods in the United States. It was Pakistan, Afghanistan, and all the ones now that's involved with this whole war thing that's going on. You see, parts of India, they had celebrations in 99 for this rise of the hidden gods in the United States. Now, the other thing is this, the link is this, is you got to get the movie Doom. Anybody ever saw the movie Doom? Yeah. All right, this is the deal. We're going to go into a question and answer to get that, but this is very important why I'm here and what's actually going on. In the movie Doom, they got these principalities warring over Arrakis, the spice. The spice is melanin. And in the middle of that, they got a group of people that's connected to the spice that the principalities in the universe didn't even know existed. They were called the Fremen. They didn't know existed. Well, congratulations, because you are the Fremen. You are the people that most of the world don't know exist. Now let me tell you what I'm talking about. In the United States, we see about 4 or 5 black people from Britain mixed up amongst white folks. And that's all we see. So in a way, you don't even exist in American media. They make sure that they sequester you, that you don't even exist. They would never know that there would be over 1 million of you You see what I'm saying? Over here, and this is what we get. This is what we get. You see what I'm saying? You don't even exist. Every time we see somebody from Britain, there's maybe one black person amongst 100 white people in the crowd, or two or three white people hanging out. They might have the black British friend. But no one would ever know that there's a million of you strong here in London. And that's because, first of all, that is one of the goals of people who conquer indigenous people, is never to let you see your strength. See what I'm saying? Just like we don't know, they got 80 million black people in Brazil that don't even know they're black. But something started happening even in Brazil around 1998, 1999. The black man in America caught on to it and started going down to Brazil for sexual purposes. But nevertheless, they got all these sisters all over them, which led to DVDs and videos and pornos and what have you. But nevertheless, sometimes there's a link that comes through even the most crude things. You see what I'm saying? So that's a connection. But the point I'm trying to make here is, why is it that in America, they would never let the black people in America, period, know that there's a million of you over here? That means that there's something that's going on, but this is when I knew it was a link, when I knew there's something special about you. Is when they made the movie about tracing the DNA. Like I said, they gave all the money to the people in America. They made the PBS specials about tracing the DNA. And then they made the movie about tracing the DNA. They made a whole motion picture of tracing the DNA from black people from London and some other parts of Europe back to Africa. They don't give a damn about no Africa, or you tracing your stuff back to Africa one bit. What it is they're trying to study the DNA to try to understand the God particle, because it can only come through you. Why? Because you have the indigenous link, you see what I'm saying, of the original indigenous people on the earth. But you also have the mixture. You see what I'm saying? We're going to get into all this type of stuff because the royal art of ancient Kemet, or the royal art of ancient Egypt, is alchemy. That's the most advanced form. These people were so bad that they can make gold. They can literally make gold out of thin air. You see what I'm saying? So when you see King Tut and you see all that gold, they would make that stuff by taking particles and putting them together and manifesting the actual gold. They were master alchemists. But they also know that there's a gold inside of the body, which is the philosopher's stone and the ultimate aspect of melanin that's inside of you. And we got two people already, I think last week. I don't know, maybe you might know this. I know last week I heard a brother had gold coming out of his coming out of his eyes, his tear ducts. Somebody might be sweating gold. Anybody have anything like this happen? Because we're trying to trace these type of things. We're trying to get into what is actually going on. But in so many words, what they're trying to trace is the new gods, the new evolution of the races. So it has to come from a people who went through the Middle Passage, or people who went through some form of migration out of Africa. That's the key, because they're killing Africans with AIDS and calling it AIDS, killing them with AZT. But 100 or 70,000 a month, calling it AZT. But why is it no Arabs are getting it? You see what I'm saying? The whole top part of Africa, you got Kemet, you got Libya, you got all Morocco, you got all this stuff, it's all Arab. And they're not coming down with AIDS. You understand what I'm saying? And nobody look at that. You see, let me give you an example. I'm going to pull these libations so I can get stuff right. Let me give you an example. They're saying that AIDS is the #1 killer of black people in the United States, but we don't know nobody dying. Everybody in the United States is obese. Wait a minute, now hold on. If AIDS is the #1 killer, why I remember when they were giving the people the AZT and all, they had the big heads and the little emaciated bodies. We don't see none of that. And nobody's dying from it. You see? They're just telling you this as basically because they can't really actually administer something. Because you got to realize this. It's an epidemic of black men and white women, and the United States government just said recently that they married off from 2000 to the end of 2007, they married off 70,000 black women to white men. So my point here is, if it's the number one killer, why ain't no white folks getting it? You see what I'm saying? If the black man, every time you see the black man, he with the white woman, why ain't no white women coming down with AIDS? You see, all that is just statistics. When they give you a statistic, then they can come and kill you off. And don't have to worry about giving you a disease that's going to spread amongst them. See what I'm saying? So, getting back to what I'm talking about is this. There is something that is going on in our DNA and in the melanin. They know it. And as a result, they got a track. They started tracking you, telling you that, you can go and trace your stuff back to Africa, or, and basically getting your blood to try to find and track this God particle, which they can't do. We're going to go into the science on what all this stuff is actually talking about. Right now what we want to do. This is a celebration because this particular deity here with these two knives in his hand came back to the planet last year this time. I think about a week ago last year this time. His name is Nefertim. He's the son of Sekhmet. The son of Sekhmet, the god is Sekhmet, and the god Ptah. Very powerful deity. He got two knives in his hand. The other one is a deity that comes by way of Mesopotamia, more than likely in Persia. It's got a lot to do with the whole Iraqi thing. But the reason why I put the two lion deities together, because the simple fact here, we know now that obviously that if you put different zootypes on different people, because most of you are by way of the Caribbean, and is the majority of the Caribbean here mostly Jamaican? Yeah. Okay, then the whole lion thing, the Lion of Judah, the whole connection with Bob Marley and the whole Rastafarian thing, you see what I'm saying, is very key. So therefore, the lion, you see what I'm saying, is one of the zootypes of the totem for the lost tribe in London, the Fremen. Anybody go get the movie Doom and look at that, because obviously it can't be the people in the United States, although we're all connected. Because in the United States, it's obvious that there's a black presence there. You understand what I'm saying? We have heroic figures. We have a history, you know what I'm saying, of all this. But my point here is whenever something is hidden, the hidden gods, that's what we're talking about. You see. Kenneth Grant, who was a British occultist, wrote a book, Alistair Crowley and the Hidden God. We're talking about those hidden gods. And let you know this. If anybody want to know, well, what is my purpose? What is the answer? The answer is short and simple. Becoming back gods and goddesses. Anything short of that, you're wasting your fucking time. You see, we'll get into this. But that's what this thing is about. And if you don't believe this, this is what this white boy knows. So you need to be clear on what they are looking out based on you. It ain't about no sovereignty. It ain't about you getting no money. It ain't about all this foolishness. It's about a group of people that's slated to become gods. And the only people that have the evolutionary process that's been on the planet long enough, you see what I'm saying? And the people who have been mixed. That's the beginning of this alchemical thing that they with the melanin, so we can deal with this thing. The only people can do it is the Africans in the diaspora. You see what I'm saying? But then, they track it based on intelligentsia. So you have a conscious movement here, just like in America. You understand what I'm saying? So as a result, this is why they're tracking your DNA, because the DNA is changing. So in so many words, your DNA has changed over the course of the last 10 or 15 years. And now think about it, is you're still thinking you're human. And as a result, it might just be one act that's going to raise up, and the DNA can snap, and you become gods and goddesses. You see what I'm saying? So now, I don't like to do an infomercial, but is very key because this particular deity came back, and his name is Nefertim. And here's a book that came out of Kemet, some ancient papyruses, called the Hebet Enbar, the Egyptian mystical rites, and it's like a ceremonial book. And someone sent me this in the mail. And when sent in the mail, this deity came through and said, that's my book. It was like, you know, they got all kind of magical stuff in there for money, for healing. You see what I'm saying? Different things like that. They say, you know, give that to the people, you see what I'm saying, and along with the picture, and bam, you can do all kind of wonders and all. So I just want to put that out about this particular thing, but we celebrating this particular deity. So in so many words, he came last year so that also it could be in place when I came to the Lion People. The book I call The Lion People by Murray Hope is out of print. That's talking about you all, you see. By Murray Hope, The Lion People. If you can't find it, there's another book called The Sirius Connection by Murray Hope. And in that book, in the back, they got a thing called Lion Power or something like that. It's dealing with the goddess Seknet and a bloodline. A bloodline. You see, so this thing is it's an entire connection that's going down. Another thing I want you to understand is this. It's very important that I say that because this particular book came out in America. I'm about to came out over here. Anyway, I didn't get here, but last year, apparently, let's see if I can find the book. Last year, apparently, they celebrated the 30-year anniversary of the album Exodus by Bob Marley. You see, album Exodus by Bob Marley. 30th anniversary. And in America, they have a place called a documentary channel. The British government tracked all of the prophecies of Bob Marley and the Wailers and all the people that was in the entourage, the prophecies as well as the teachings. They tracked these particular prophecies, and the British government let them out last year in America. Anybody see these things? The British government, there's some prophecies that they, for the whole time that whole ordeal between the time back and forth from London up until his death in 81, and all, not only him, the whole entourage of everybody, you see what I'm saying, you know, even from Peter Tosh or whoever that was connected, they tracked these prophecies. And they let these prophecies out last year in the United States. You see what I'm saying? So there's things that you'll see over here that they won't let out in the United States, and there's things that we'll see over there that they won't let out over here. It's just like a tape called Mind Control in America that the British government let out, and America got mad. But it was about mind control in America. You see what I'm saying? So they celebrated this, but there's one key that you got to understand as far as a link. Let me give you what I'm talking about. We got a transmission recently, because this happened twice. The first, they have the British invasions. So the British invasion was supposed to have been the Beatles. And they saying right now that they couldn't understand how the Beatles could invade America because really the songs were very popcorn and very really stupid until they developed into something later on. By the time they started doing the Sgt. Pepper thing. But they saying the people went crazy. And now they're saying it was all kind of mind control, MK Ultra thing that they was putting on the people. And they pulling out their hair and all kind of stuff like that. Now Michael Jackson did it for real. You remember he was over in Germany and even guys was passing out. Jimi Hendrix came over and was putting them in altered states of consciousness over here. And that's why they took him out. But so there was a British invasion of MK Ultra in America, but Jimi Hendrix was the first American invasion that was the real shit, putting people in altered states of consciousness. And they took him out. You see what I'm saying? And the next thing would be the whole Bob Marley aspect, but this is one of the keys. What you must know and must understand. So the transmission came down that Jimi Hendrix, after so many years, and you can see this in the Voodoo Pantheon, they will have deities, Razuli, Ogun, different types of deities, and then they'll have a group of ancestors that is relegated to the gods, just like Imhotep is relegated to the gods. So that means a person has done such a powerful work, and when they leave the earth after so many years, maybe 30 years or 40 years, they get relegated as a power of a god. Because what are we but just gods in the physical? We'll get into all of that. Well, apparently Jimi Hendrix was relegated as a god in the spirit realm. So they actually, you could use his music and tap into his spirit. You can use it for healing. You could also use it for protection. My queen, when she was in D.C., they used to have all kind of, there's all types of experiments going on in D.C. D.C., you know, there's all types of stuff, and helicopters and all kind of stuff. So in order to cool the energy out, and also mind control to get black people to shoot each other, kill each other. It's going on in Philadelphia as we speak. So what she would have to do is go get Jimi Hendrix's machine gun as a weapon to fight back of all the mind control stuff that was going on in Washington, D.C. And she would play that, you know, the machine gun song from the, what's the name of that album? Well, it's on several greatest hits, but Band of Gypsies. And as a result, the energy would just cool out. So we're talking about force fields and ancestors and spirits that have the power after so many years. If they have power down here, can you imagine what they would have when they get free of a restricted body? So I know in about a couple of years, we're going to see what James Brown going to pitch a bitch with. See what I'm saying? This man changed time on the planet. The dance, every beat that we are dealing with now as far as any type of movement or music is James Brown invention. So if he can change time, what you think he's going to do in the spirit world? Well, another one is relegated to that level is Bob Marley. Now, what I'm trying to say is this. For the people that's in the Rastafarian faith, I don't want you to get offended. You just got to understand the apparatus and how things go. Try to understand this. There's a book put out by Dr. John White called The Messiahs of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I know his last name is White. When they dug up these Dead Sea Scrolls, y'all all right? Is this stuff boring you? We got to pull libations. It's key to understand this stuff. They dug up these Dead Sea Scrolls and they translated them, took them years to translate them. One of the things that they did get from the translation was that they understood that the word Messiah didn't necessarily mean one person walking around with long hair looking like the so-called this white boy Jesus, which never existed. You see what I'm saying? A series of events that never existed. We'll get into that science. They understood that the Messiah was several people in the community, as far as what the Dead Sea Scrolls said about these black people, the Essenes, or the black Hebrews or whatever, because all that stuff comes from us. You see what I'm saying? Before somebody else usurped it and trying to masquerade as the is it really is. But based on these texts, based on the Dead Sea Scrolls, that they said that a Messiah would be an artist, a musician, a scholar, and different people in the community that could actually lift the community up, healers. You see what I'm saying? Entertainers, poets. If they were on a high level, they could be messiahs. This is what the Dead Sea Scrolls said, what the Hebrew aspect of what Mashiach means. Now, we know now that Bob Marley actually was a messiah. Bob Marley was the fulfillment of what was given to Haile Selassie. Now, you got to understand where I'm coming from here. Because if you tap into the right energy, now all you got to do is just use your common sense and get out of the whole traditional aspect of why you were taught something from a small age or what have you. Now, try to understand this. You can have what is called a Christ figure, and then you can have a Mashiach Christ type energy. One is a figure based on a tradition. Now, try to understand. The Ethiopians and the Cushites had a tradition of a lineage of the Messianic kingship. All right? And Haile Selassie was born into that, which would make him a Christ figure. But not the Christ. He's the Christ figure. He has all of the emblems. He's the kingship. Just like we have the pharaohs, and then you would also have the priests, which would be mostly the gods. Now, try to understand where I'm coming from here. The Christ who took, so Haile Selassie was the manifestation of the tradition Y'all get where I'm coming from here? Of the iconic traditions of the lineage of kings from the whole Ethiopian or Cushite aspect. So he ascended the throne. You understand what I'm saying? So they say, look for a person to be throned in Ethiopia. But the Messiah of that took on the manifestation on what